All right, so who is this guy? I'm David Warner. I'm your host. I have a blog, and I'm an MVP and a Microsoft certified trainer, work for Quisitive, and I love the community. So if you got things that you want to talk about with me around this or anything else, please don't hesitate to reach out. We love to collaborate with everybody in the community and support you. And if you want to do something together or present together or something like that, let's do it. All right, what is our agenda for today? So we're going to have the Star Wars theme continued. And in my last video, which was on the call a few weeks ago, and I'm going to put that link in the chat. We'll include it in the show notes as well. Don't check it out now. Stay tuned. You can check it out later. We went over component libraries. And so we're going to have another review of component libraries. We're going to talk about how it can connect to Power Apps Modern Themes and the overview of where we are right now with the modern themes status and state of the world and all that. And then you're going to see a use case of a global theme, how we can take advantage of that global theme and all that stuff. And then we're also going to take a look at some future opportunities for component libraries and components where we can kind of level up from Padawan to Jedi Master. All right, so the first thing that we want to talk about is, what is a component library? Well, it is a Power App really. It's a solution that you can go in and add components to, controls to. You can add dynamic properties to, and we're going to see that. You can add content and functionality and all kinds of cool stuff. And the point of it is it works as a centralized repository, right? So it enables you to maintain consistency. And when you publish updates, any app that uses the components within that component library, and you can have many, we'll see an example of that, will be able to be updated. They'll be notified when a change occurs. And then that way you can have these centralized, take care, manage things in one place and deploy it in many places, right? So you don't have to have things sprawled across multiple apps and then say, oh man, a change came down from branding and marketing, and I got to go change it in a plethora of places. No, you change it in one place. Everybody gets notified that it's been updated. And then they can make the choice if they want to accept those changes. All right, so now then, what about modern themes? Well, these new modern themes, they do a few things, right? They're going to be providing unified app design. You've got customizable colors. We'll see an exact example of that today. So you can choose fonts. They support modern controls. You've got accessibility. And most of all, consistent user experience, right? And that's where combining it with a component within a component library becomes so powerful. And we'll see an example of that today. All right, so what is our use case? Okay, well, our use case is we're going to have a simple About Us screen, but within that About Us screen, which is what I showed off in the last video, and again, I'll recover all of that for you here in a moment, but if you want to watch that last video, check it out. It provides consistency across apps, right? So by including a theme within this pre-existing component library that we already have, we are able to now feed that out to people that are already using that component in the component library. And so it reduces design discrepancies. I know brand can be very, very persnickety about the exact text colors and all of those things, because it does make a difference in the recognizability of the organization and the company. So you want that sharing of the unified theme. You want that reduction in design discrepancies. And then for you as an app builder, it saves time, right? So when you get that message down and they say, oh, hey, I know we've got like 75 apps and we need to go change the colors on them. Well, you only need to update them once. Doesn't mean that you can't tell them you got to update 75 and then say, well, it's going to take 5 hours and then go to lunch. No, don't tell them I said that. But you can update the theme once, and then that eliminates the repetitive design edits across multiple apps, right? So they will need to update them within the app. You will need to do that, and we'll see exactly what that looks like. So without any further ado, let's dive into an exact example, right? So let me set the stage. What I've got here is a simple app. We only have one little screen here. We've got a couple of buttons down here. I've got a modern button and a classic button, because there is some discrepancies between how the theme works within modern button and classic button. So I just want to highlight one of those properties specifically, and you can dive into a little bit more about them later. But we've got a simple app here. I've just got a couple of buttons. I've got that About Us screen here. Now, this is coming from a component library, and so we'll take a look at that in a moment. And then I've got another screen here that outputs my modern theme info, right? So we'll revisit this in a moment, but essentially what I'm doing is each theme has JSON behind it that identifies all these values, right? And we'll see what these mean in a moment. We'll talk about it. But I am outputting that information for us to benefit from within this app. Okay, so let me go back to my home screen. Now, first things first, you got to make sure that you're consuming the modern themes and controls, right? So to do that, you go down into settings, you come over to updates, and you got to make sure you turn it on. It's not on by default, so you got to turn it on right there. Now, I've already turned it on for purposes of the demo and all that stuff. Okay, so I've got it turned on. So once you have it turned on, they are changing the UI a little bit. Themes used to show up here as an actual icon here on the left. Now it shows up under the ellipsis. So if things get moved around, don't get unsettled. It'll be there somewhere for you. And when I come into themes, we see I've got a number of themes that are pre-available. Now, some of these up top, these 4, don't pay any attention to those yet. Don't pay attention to the wizard behind the curtain. We are going to talk about those in a moment. But these Power Apps and Teams and SharePoint and Steel and all of these are out of the box. And if I click on them, then you see my buttons change, right? So if I go from Power Apps here being blue down to orange, these change colors. And if I hold down Alt and hover over them, you can see that there's some degree of change that happens on that particular button for me, right? And a little bit, I don't know, less on the monitor button. We'll talk about that in a moment. But then you can also add your own theme. Okay, so when you add your own theme, you can choose a primary color. So if I do this, of course, I got to go with purple, right? Come on, purple or orange. All right, so I start there. I can give it a theme name. And I've got a font choice. I've got some other properties here that I won't go into details on, but affect the UI and the feeling. And then I've got these multiple palettes here, choices within my palette. So it by default sets the primary color. That's what you're setting right up here. And then you've got from darker 70 down to darker 10 and lighter 10 down to lighter 80. Now, this interface here is fairly new because I remember talking about before where you can only set the primary color and then it would force you on these, right? It would force those. Now you're able to identify each individual one. So I can also see a preview, right? So I can see a preview here. But if I wanted to say, well, you know what? I want a primary color and then I want to create a 2-tone color, right? Maybe I want a 2 or a 3-tone color palette. So I can do that. I can click on the individual slot and then I can say, okay, I'm going to change this to orange and I'm going to make that a little brighter. And now what happens is there's one thing that identifies for us, right? So we can see a little black dot there. So that is an identifier that we have customized that. We made a change. And if I want to reset it, I can. I just come back here. I've got the reset button. I'm not going to do that now, but I'm able to do that, right? And then watch what happens is you'll notice things are changing colors down here. That's pretty slick, right? I think that's pretty slick. So I like these 2-tone colors. Maybe even you could get a 3-tone or you could play around with it. If you wanted to set a different color and make it a Skittles theme, you could. I don't know how many brand people are going to love you for that, but you could do that, right? So take advantage, play around with it, and you can see the different effects. Now, what I also like is that when I do hover over this, I get a little explanation. That's pretty cool. Thank you, Microsoft. That's really, really cool. Press states, active borders, background hover, focus effects, right? So that's why I know when I change that color, I'm going to get some hover effects down here on my primary things, right? Okay, I'm gonna not create that. I'm gonna cancel because I've already got one created. I've got a 2-tone effect. I've got some single colors here that I've created. So I've got a Warner Digital purple and a Warner Digital orange, right? Of course, I've got to go with my brand themes and all that. And that's just creating the spectrum. And it's using that single color to create that spectrum. But then I also created a 2-tone theme here, so I've identified within my darker, which is used for things like hover states, secondary action text, and all that. And when I scroll down here, we can see that changing color when I turn things on and off and hover over them, right? The tabs and stuff like that, which is pretty cool. Now, what I want to highlight, though, is that your mileage may vary, right? So there's not full feature parity between modern controls and classic controls. And what do I mean by that? Well, I mean that when I put this into hold down Alt as if I'm emulating the play, and I hover over my classic button, that's cool, right? That's exactly what I expect. I hover over it, I get orange, I get purple when I'm not, so that's super cool. When I hover over the modern button, I just get a darker version of purple, right? And so you got to be a little aware. Things are not feature parodied yet on that. So just your mileage may vary. You got to test it out, even though you think it should do that. Well, and in what cases can we control that, right? So where can we control that? Well, when we go to talking about this app, its functionality lives somewhere specific. The modern theme, I should say, the modern theme, it lives somewhere specific. So when I click on app right here, in my tree view. And then I go to the properties, there is a theme property that I can connect to. So I go to that theme property and you'll see if I go back to themes, WD to color, right? So that was the name of my theme, my custom theme. So it's just changing the name there. If I go to Warner Digital Purple, it's just changing the name there. So if this is a property, then obviously we can connect into that property and maybe access its values, right? And control it. Yes, that's exactly what we can do. So that's where I've got my modern theme info. I've got a text box here, and thank you, April, for we work together on figuring some of this stuff out. That is the actual app. We can reference that app object and then the theme property in a number of ways, and we'll talk about that in a moment, but it's able for me to output this content. So I'm able to see the exact property structure, JSON. I see my font there. I see my name there. I see all of my colors, right? All that stuff is being controlled by the app object and the theme property. So that's what I'm using to output that. And when I look at the classic button and I look at, for example, hover fill, then we see that is also by default accessing that app object and theme. And that's why we're able to see, okay, I can identify exactly what color it's using on its hover. And that's why it's going over to that orange. Darker 10 I had set as orange as my color. When I come in here and I go to edit and I look at darker 10, we see that that is the color that I've got. So I can control that. That hover property doesn't exist on the modern button, right? Or other similar properties don't exist for us to control. But it does on the classic buttons, control out of the box. And again, there is some value there. So, okay, so we've set the context on modern themes, the new features, the benefits, but here's the challenge. It is scoped only to the app, right? So I create these things, great, they're wonderful, I love them, but guess what? I create a new app, I'm gonna have to create again that particular theme. And I will say that I can come in here and I could do it inside of a variable if I wanted to, because I could simply just capture the property here and I could throw that in a variable, make it a little easier than having to point and click and recreate it by hand each and every single time. But there is a better way. There is a better way, and that is our component library. So right now, if I go into my insert, I've already got that about us, right? So I've got this Jedi Council component library about us. This information in this screen is coming to me from a component library. And that's right over here. So here's my component library. I've got this about us. We've got this information. I've already got some custom properties, right? So we've got app name and app version and known issues. Those are things that can be populated by the app. Global updates I can force out. But guess what? A component library can have multiple components. So how are we going to use it? Well, I'm going to go over here and I'm going to select new component. And it's going to change or give me the name. I'm just going to say theme engine, what's it called? Theme engine. And now I don't need to add anything to the screen. There's nothing visible that I need about this particular component. What I do need is I need properties, and I need to be able to put that property. If I go back to my theme info, I need to be able to put this information into a parameter of the component that will get fed into my app. So let's do that. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to create a new custom property. And I'm just going to call this WD to tone. And I'll leave that. That's fine. Input, it's going to be an output because it is outputting from the component into my app. And for type, for data type, I'm going to select a record because we know that it's a JSON, right? We know it's JSON, so we know it's a record, and we can access that, right? So I'm going to say create. And now when I click on that, it's going to give me access to the actual property, right? So it gives me the actual property, and it gives me a sample string here. Just expand that of JSON, right? So cool, excellent. So that means that I can come in and I can take the JSON. I've just copied this into my clipboard to make it quicker for time and all that. But you could pull it out of your app, copy and paste it, clean it up, and I'm going to format text so we get rid of those blank spaces. And what I'm doing is I'm just a structured JSON of exactly what we've got over here, right? So we got that darker 10, darker 20, etc. Same thing going on here. Now we've had to apply a little bit of extra expressions and functions here to make it a color value so it understands exactly what's going on. Again, thank you, April. We worked through this together. But I'm including all this stuff here that is available, right? So lighter or darker to 70, 10 to blah, 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 and primary, and adding the font. And the name, that's the name that gets applied. Now, that's not the name we're going to use within our app. We're going to actually use the name of our component and the component property. Okay, so now that I've got this additional component added, I am going to save it, and then I am going to publish it, right? So I'm going to publish, and I'm just saying publish this version. What I'm publishing now is the theme engine, part of the component library. And again, not real indicative that I've done that. So I've just got the button back again, so I know it's done. So now if I were to close this app, I'm back in my app. If I were to close this app and reopen it, it would tell me, hey, there's an update. There's been an update to the component you're using. Would you like to import it? But if you know there's already been an update, you can come to your insert panel and you can hit the little refresh recycle icon here. We see it says check for component library updates. So I'm going to do that, and bam, there it goes. Tells me, hey, there's been an update. Excellent. Okay, cool. So I'm going to hit update, loading. Great. Selected components were successfully imported. Okay, cool. But I don't see it down here, right? I see library components. I don't see it. What's going on? You still, because we added another component, right? I still need to import the actual component. So I updated the component library, which gives me access to the theme engine component, which I just created. So I'm going to say, yeah, I'm going to check it and click import. And now you see, okay, cool. Now my theme engine is showing up. Got it? Okay, cool. So how do we use it then? How do we use it? Well, first we need to add it to our app. Right, so you might have a screen that you use for loading global parameters or global variables or just whatever. I'm just going to add it to the home screen. I'm going to come in here. I'm going to say insert library components theme engine. And that shows up right there, right? And so now, again, there's nothing that is visible on that. So it just kind of sits merrily in the background. There's really nothing about that theme engine that is visible on the screen. It's just carrying the data that I need. So now what can I do? I come over to app and I come over to theme right here. And I can go theme engine dot, and look what I have access to. Theme engine 1, WD two-tone, right? And now before I've done that, look what happened. Down here, my buttons got kind of wonky, right? Because I don't have a theme actually being applied. This is like an error right now. So it's like, I don't know what color you want. But as soon as I finish this out, WD two-tone, right? We see that data type record. That's how I knew the output parameter needed to be a record. Cool. I see that. And now that's being treated, if I put it into play, right, like a theme. But it's coming from my component. So now when I make changes to my component over here, I can come in and I could change just the color if I want, or a single color, and I can publish it, and all of my apps will automatically get those updates, and they won't need to come into the button, right, to actually make the change, because again, it's referencing app. Well, when it points at app is pointing at my component output property. So it all magically, if you're connecting those dots, just works. It just works. And hey, by the way, let's say I've got this other theme over here, the Warner Wonka, right? So we got an Oompa Loompa theme going on there. I kind of like the movie. I find Oompa Loompas awesome. And let's say I wanted to add that. You could have multiple themes. So if you wanted to include multiple themes in your component, if you had a couple different themes, so you didn't want to be like, hey, everybody, you can have any theme you want as long as it's black. Well, no, maybe you want to give them options. So you can do that. You can come back over to my theme. I'm going to do that. I'm going to add another custom property. I'm going to call it Warner Wonka. I'm going to set it to output. I'm going to set it to record. I'm going to hit create. I'm going to go here, open it up, and I'm going to paste in my Warner Wonka, format the text. So we see that here. Again, I'm just copying it off of a clipboard. These are all those same colors from that custom theme that I had set up in my app. I'm going to save and publish this. Right, so it's publishing, we're good to go. I come back over to my app, I come here and I say check for component updates. So yes, great, awesome, got the update. I'm gonna hit update. And now, because I'm already using that component, all I need to do is come over to my app and access that component. So if I go theme engine 1 dot, now look what's showing up, Warner Wonka, both of them. So I can actually make a choice. You've got approved choices that brand is offering. I can make a choice as a user. So I feel like I've got a little bit more flexibility, perhaps, within my ecosystem, right? And when I hover over that, bam, getting that green, the Oompa Loompa feeling. Super, super cool, right? And again, you can do multiple things, right? So if I needed to say, hey, I've got to update my About Us. So I'm going to come in here and say, yep, hey, there's a new modern theme. It's purple and orange. Why? Because nothing says modern like it's high-tech sunset or a very confused lightsaber. But it's going to be consistent, right? So if you needed to give them information that something has updated, that About Us will then get also published over here. So if I were to just simply publish that, publish, I'll come over here. I will go to my About Us screen. Ooh, that is bright. And I will come and I will refresh and hit update. And guess what? Bam. I didn't even have to change anything other than updating, and that got updated because the power of component libraries. So a lot of information here going on. Rewatch the video if you have to. I've got another custom video that I just created yesterday as part of this demo that I'll share on my own YouTube channel. This will go on to ours. Super excited. Reach out if you have any questions. I love components. Love, love, love them. I think they're super, super powerful. So what's next? Let's wrap this demo up, and then we can wrap up the call. So if you want to level up, what can we do? Well, I had mentioned last call that I would talk about modern themes. We just did. What's next? You can do things like iconography collections. You saw that I was able to multiple themes within that single component. Well, you can add multiple properties for other things that could be used within your organization, right? Super, super slick. Animation libraries. I'm super passionate about animation and how that can be used, not just gratuitously, but specifically for a very unique purpose, right? And then enhanced properties, which are experimental, we will talk about next time as well. So thank you, everybody.